Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. The world has enough wealth and resources to ensure that the entire human race enjoys a basic standard of living. Yet people in countries like Burundi, South Sudan and the Central African Republic, the three poorest in the world, continue to live in desperate poverty. For other likely contenders for the undesirable title of poorest of the poor, like Afghanistan, Syria and Lebanon, years of military, social, political turmoil make it impossible to attempt any assessment due to the lack of reliable economic figures. But how do we measure how poor or wealthy a given nation is compared to another? While GDP per capita is often considered the standard metric, by compensating for differences in living costs and rates of inflation, the purchasing power parity, PPP, can better assess an individual's buying power in any given country. Here is the list of top 10 poorest countries in the world. Before we begin, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any future updates. Number 10. Madagascar. Located 400 kilometers off the coast of East Africa, Madagascar is the fourth largest island in the world. Known for its astonishing wildlife, the flourishing tourism industry has not been able to lift the country out of poverty. The majority of the population is still dependent upon agriculture for their livelihoods, leaving the country's economy especially vulnerable to weather-related disasters. Since becoming independent from France in 1960, Madagascar has experienced bouts of political instability, violent coups and disputed elections. Number 9. Chad. Chad is the 10th largest oil reserve holder among African nations. It is also among the 10 poorest. The landlocked Sahelian country, once an agrarian economy, became an oil producer in 2003. But the sudden windfall brought wealth to a few and misery to many. At the time, the government introduced a law earmarking 80% of royalties and 85% of dividends from oil production for poverty relief. These sums were supposed to finance communities, infrastructure, health and education. But autocratic President Idris Deby, who had seized power in a military coup in 1990, immediately moved to gain more control over those capitals. Just 3 years later, the law requiring to consult with churches, trade unions and non-profit organizations on how to allocate the money was repealed. Number 8. Malawi. One of Africa's smallest nations, in recent years Malawi has made strides in improving economic growth and implementing crucial structural reforms. Nevertheless, poverty is still widespread, and the nation's economy, largely dependent upon rain-fed crops, remains vulnerable to weather-related shocks. As a result, while living standards in urban areas are broadly improving, food insecurity in rural parts is extremely high. Number 7. Mozambique. The former Portuguese colony has plenty of arable land and water, and ample energy and mineral resources. Mozambique is also strategically located, as 4 of the 6 countries it borders are landlocked and depend on it as a conduit to global trade. And over the past decade has often posted average GDP growth rates of more than 7%. Yet, it remains among the top 10 poorest countries in the world, with large sectors of the population continuing to live well below the poverty line. While a 15-year-long civil war ended in 1992, severe climate conditions, corruption and political instability never went away. To make things worse, since 2017 attacks carried out by Islamic insurgent groups have plagued the gas-rich northern part of the country. Up to 4,000 people were killed and another 800,000 displaced. Number 6. Niger. With 80% of its landlocked territory covered by the Sahara Desert, and a rapidly growing population largely dependent upon small-scale agriculture, Niger is under threat from desertification and climate change. Food insecurity is high, as are disease and mortality rates. And the army's recurrent clashes with jihadist group and Islamic State, ISIS, affiliate Boko Haram have displaced thousands of people. One of the main drivers of the economy, the extraction of valuable natural resources such as gold and uranium, has also suffered from volatility and low commodity prices. The country, which is now considered a bright spot on the continent, will see its economy expanding by up to 7% this year and in 2023, and is now projected to achieve double-digit growth by 2024. Number 5. Somalia. 3 decades of internal violence and conflict resulting in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. Frequent droughts and floods followed by famine and disease, lack of access to health services. Massive levels of unemployment among especially young people. Somalis are growing hopeless. This country of 16 million in the Horn of Africa never seems to catch a break. The sustained GDP growth shown in the latter part of the last decade was interrupted in 2020 by the compounded effect of the coronavirus pandemic. An infestation of locusts unprecedented in modern times and intensified floods, which caused the economy to contract. Number 4. Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. Since gaining independence from Belgium in 1960, the Congo has suffered decades of rapacious dictatorship, political instability and constant violence. The country turned a page in 2019, when Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, the son of legendary opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi, was elected as the new president. The tasks he faces are daunting. His controversial predecessor Joseph Kabila, who had governed since succeeding his assassinated father in 2001, is credited for bringing an end to what is commonly referred to as the Great African War, a conflict that claimed up to 6 million lives, either as a direct result of fighting or because of disease and malnutrition. Number 3. Central African Republic. Rich in gold, oil, uranium and diamonds, the Central African Republic is a very wealthy country inhabited by very poor people. However, after claiming the title of the poorest in the world for the best part of the decade, this nation of just 4.8 million is showing some signs of progress. The government has struggled to restore sales and has seen only a fraction of the revenues it once did. And roughly 70% of the population still live below the poverty line. Number 2. South Sudan. South Sudan is the newest nation in the world. It was born on July 9, 2011, 6 years after the agreement that ended the conflict with Sudan, Africa's longest-running civil war. However, violence has continued to ravage this landlocked state of roughly 11 million. Formed by the 10 southernmost territories of Sudan and home to around 60 indigenous ethnic groups. A new conflict broke out in 2013 when President Salva Kiir accused his former deputy, rebel leader Riek Machar, of staging a coup. As a result, it is estimated that as many as 400,000 people were killed in clashes and nearly 4 million have been internally displaced or fled to neighboring countries. Number 1. Burundi. The small landlocked country of Burundi, scarred by Hutu-Tutsi ethnic conflict and civil war, has the rather unenviable distinction of topping the world's poverty ranking. With about 90% of its nearly 12 million citizens relying on subsistence agriculture, and the overwhelming majority of them living in extreme poverty, food scarcity is a major concern. The level of food insecurity is almost twice as high as the average for sub-Saharan African countries. Furthermore, access to water and sanitation remains very low, and less than 5% of the population has electricity. All these problems, needless to say, have only been exacerbated by the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. What do you think about our list? Tell us in the comment section below. And if you have any questions or suggestions, then feel free to mention them in the comment section and we will surely respond to your request. If you liked this video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video.